Thank you very much. So we shall begin the discussion with the comments of Mr. Ahmad. Ahmad, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I like to congratulate both of the speakers. It was really well thought out, very well presented, and it was very concise. So yesterday we saw some of the presentations, and it was a good way of presenting it. I will start with the geotagging one. I thought maybe that's, and then I would feedback because I saw the relationship between two presentations, and this has some potential application or some application between the both. So I'll start with the first geotagging one. And there were some terms which struck me, diving for monitoring. So, that's a good context that we can dive in and we can do monitoring. And then there was another important one that we can do monitoring without really going there. So these two things I would like to expand on and think about it more carefully, that how the technology can really help us, but we also have to be careful of some of the things we have to take forward. But let me say that it's really, as the way the world is facing up and innovations are coming up and technology is really helping to improve certain kind of things the way we do, and it's really great. But I think it's really important not to forget the human side of it, because we still have to see the interpretation of the data can be depend on how we are actually taking that data. For example, for me, one of the things which I found, which maybe you said that the quality of the road can be checked by actually looking at the diameters and how to. But I think so the important part of it is also that how we're involving the community as part of it, because it's not about just building the road, we also have to maintain the road, and how we are actually benefiting out of that road. So how we can bring that part of the spectrum as we look at the whole context of the monitoring. Because this is one kind of evidence we are generating, which is important, which we need to know how it is. But I think so there's one step forward when we talk about evaluation, is actually when we talk about the effectiveness, actually that how does it relate to the beneficiaries, how who's actually benefiting from it, how we can actually bring them as part of this thing. So I think so this is one more thing we have to think about when we're actually thinking about the tools and the technology, that to bring the human side of it, to not just the physical part of it. The other thing which I like about it, that maybe this is something we can the importance of using the pre and post. I think is something important we all think about it, that we need to know what's the pre situation, and then there's a post part of it, and you can actually see that how things are moving. And also there is what we call when we're talking about the evaluation, it's very important to think through it, that how exactly is going to lead something which can actually make a difference. And if we start from that question, that how we have to measure that difference, then we can all think through it, that what kind of technology is there to help find that difference is making. So we can go one step further to enhance it. So that's basically for the geotagging part of it. But the other thing which I liked about it, that you were talking about using Zenson, but then I saw you were using Apple, so that's a good thing. That's a good mix, use of technology. On the GIC, I think it was in the side of the projects and how we're looking at the projects, I think that's a good interpretation that how we can relate the results-based management as part of the project, and how actually we can integrate in the system. But one of the things which struck me, and I think so is something which the project has to think about, I was more looking forward that how actually use the data. Because obviously you have produced quite a lot of data in terms of, you said about there are 797 households, there were enough Rangas for interview. How actually you use the data and how actually it is used in the decision-making process. Because collection of the data is one part of the process, but how actually you use that as part of the decision-making, that's another challenge. So maybe that's something we can bring it out in the next time when we're looking at this presentation. However, some of the challenges which I think, because the project looked at the 5 LGUs, but there are 1400 plus LGUs, and there's a challenge of application. How do we see that there's application part of it? This has to be thought through as part of any system what we're trying to build, that is it part of the larger system which the government is already having, or is it just how GIZ want to see the monitoring of its project? So I think so they have to bring the balance of these two things. Some of the questions which can be asked that the indicators are very important, but are these indicators part of the READ Plus? Are these indicators part of the national monitoring system which they're looking at it? So these are some of the things what one can think about. And I think so the other, the important factor which I found working in Philippines is that the LGUs collect a lot of data. They have a lot of data as part of when they're doing the collection, but the challenge is always coming out, how do they do the interpretation and how do they use that data for their own decision making? So how we can make that link with this innovation and technology to become of the part and parcel of that system. I think so that has a lot of, and as you said rightly, part of your challenge, that you're looking at to integrate as part of the READ Plus, which I think is an important development there, that the whole development system has this system. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Masood. Now maybe invite Mr. Giorgio Gomez to give the comments on behalf of this.
Thank you. I prepared a few slides. Next slide, please. So here's my outline, comments on the first paper, Rating the RED Plus project, site experiences in the formulation of the M&E system of the National Rating Program. And the next would be the comments on maximizing ICT's technical for monitoring and evaluation, the MRDP's utilization of jail tagging technology. So for the first study, on the intent of the study to enhance monitoring and evaluation guidelines of the National Greening Program through the use of MRD and RBM systems developed under the local RED Plus implementation in countries commendable. This effort is in line with the government's thrust to focus on results-based M&E that extend beyond the project outputs, but focuses on more relevant impacts on the ground. For example, poverty eradication and environmental protection. On the approach and methodology, the paper highlights a number of viable approaches to systematically develop MRD and RBM systems. One notable approach noted was the GHG accounting. The NGP M&E scheme may consider financing agreements mechanism to engage with NGP stakeholders, as well as ensure stakeholder commitment to sustainable forest management, against increasing foreign carbon stocks. Another important tool identified the assessment of RED impacts on biodiversity and assessment of socioeconomic impact indicators, which the NGP may also try to develop to further contribute to the enhancement of the M&E system. On the recommendation, corruption risk assessment of RED Plus is seen as a very valuable intervention that can be used in the NGP M&E scheme to improve transparency and governance at all levels. On the limitation of the study, on establishing the direct link of the DNR-GIZ project results-based M&E system to the NGP M&E system. It should be noted that while it is recognized that the NGP is also eligible for RED Plus implementation, its M&E system is based on the identified targets of the DNR and its major final outputs. In this regard, there are elements, considerations required under RED Plus, which include international indicators that may not be considered under the NGP M&E scheme, but can be enhanced accordingly vis-a-vis RED Plus requirements. So the results-based M&E system developed under the DNR-GIZ RED Plus project provides a systematic way to conduct an actual validation process on the ground. However, we deem that it may be more useful to also present and compare the said M&E system with the NGP M&E system to strategically assess possible areas of integration and identify specific areas for enhancement in the NGP M&E scheme. This is to concretely emphasize the need to integrate the project's results-based M&E system with the NGP M&E system. On the conclusions, it is deemed that the conclusion, in addition to the identified general requirements in development of the MRV and RBM systems, should focus more on providing concrete justification on the need to integrate the project's results-based M&A system with the NGP-MNE based on the evaluation of the two M&A systems and schemes. Concrete justification and reasons will be relevant to be able to generate buy-in of concerned institution, in this case DNR. On the integration of MRV-related outputs of other RED Plus projects in the Philippines, we suggest that to the extent possible, the analysis should also consider the related MRV outputs from ongoing RED Plus projects in the country, namely one, UN RED Plus and BMU project on National RED Plus system, with outputs geared toward development of national MRV for RED Plus. The outputs from these projects may also guide DNR to holistically assess the elements of the MRV and RBM systems which will be useful to enhance the NGP-MNE system. So on the second study, geotagging, we generally recognize the contributions of using applied geotagging technology for the project monitoring, validation, evaluation, and areas covered by MRTV in terms of transparency and accountability to stakeholders of the program, particularly the LGUs. However, we would like to raise the following concerns to further substantiate the use of EGP. In sustainability, there should be a clear sustainability plan on how to maintain the system even after project implementation, considering the readiness of LGU in terms of resources, particularly capacity and skills of available manpower to use the EGP. Further technology transfer should also form part of the set plan. To ensure sustainability of the learnings from the training, it is suggested that participants be required to submit an output on how geotagging is being or could be utilized in their respective offices. This output should be consolidated either by MRDP office or ITCAP to serve as input in the DA's database. As a decision-making tool, it is also important for geotagging to be utilized as a decision-making tool as it enables identification of already existing projects and will allow identification of areas which requires government intervention. Such an example of this is the Inventory System of Agriculture and Fisheries Investments, or ISAFI, which is a special project of the DA pilot tested in Leyte, province of Leyte. The ISAFI is an inventory activity which entails complete enumeration of all available investments that were owned by the government and private sector that was conducted from June to October 2011. Covers 43 municipalities and 3 cities of Leyte. The data gathered can be used for geotagging, and this will allow the DA regional office in partnership with the LGUs and other stakeholders to conceptualize and prepare plans, programs to directly address the needs of the farmers in the countryside. The geotagging activities such as ISAFI is a very important reference in creating national plans and programs, such as the DA Public Investment Program. The DA can not only monitor performance and investment projects in the PAP through the use of geotagging, but also could identify the priority areas for investment for updating in the successive years. Moreover, expansion of the project in a nationwide scale will aid the department in effectively and efficiently formulating the strategic agricultural fisheries development zones under the agricultural fisheries modernization. So, essentially that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gregorio. So the Secretariat collected questions from the floor, and quite a lot of them almost evenly divided between the first presentation and the second one. So we proceed with maybe I shall be reading first the questions addressed to the first speaker, Ms. Ramos, of the RED Plus project of the ISET, and maybe Ms. Ramos could comment on could reply to the comments from our discussants as well as the questions that we shall be reading. First, there is this question to Ms. Ramos. a slightly similar project funded by the Global Environmental Fund found out that secondary forest covers produced by RED serve as forest traps to migrating birds and effect a negative impact. If this were an outcome possible out of your project, how would you account for the program's theory of change, specifically in reference to your step 2? And then from the same person who still on this different executive. Another question is, what has been the extent of involvement and contribution of DNR in setting up the RED MRV system? So apparently, the impression from the presentation was that it's mainly a GIZ initiative, like Parimonte DNR. In fact, the questions are coming from DNR. It appears that the project ownership, and there's the issue of project ownership in that particular case from the same person. What steps are done on the side of RED Plus implementers in linking their documented results on the results matrix of the PBP? So maybe we can let Ms. Ramos respond to these first three questions first, together with the comments of our discussants, so before we go over the other questions. Ms. Ramos, please.
Hello, good morning again. So maybe for the first one, for the use of the data we have collected, again we have to put in mind that this baseline are for something and not just for collecting data. This data will be used to actually assess the impact of RED Plus if it is already implemented on the ground. So particularly for the biodiversity, also data or another survey will be done to assess if there are impacts of the project, positive or negative impacts in Southern Leyte. And then for the socio-economic study, for the impact of the study, this data and the study were all provided to the partner LGUs, and this data can feed into the or contribute to the CBMS, to the use of the CBMS of these LGUs. And we also believe that these LGUs are using this data to actually do their forest land use plans and other plans for the LGUs. And for the question or comment for the UN-RED, first, for the project, it is actually anchored, as I said and mentioned this morning, that it is anchored at the Philippine National RED Plus strategy, and it's not just a GIZ project, because in this strategy, all of the activities, or mainly the goals of the strategy, are already mentioned, and the project only implements and help to implement this strategy. The PNRPS is also mentioned in the NCCAP, which makes the project actually support the government, and it's not just a funder or donor-driven project. For all of the activities of the project, we actually really consult with the partner, DNR FMB, and we don't really impose on things which these partners don't agree with. So it's not really a separate project or anything, and we try, or most of the time, most of the decisions are made with the partners and not just GIZ.
In relation to that, Ms. Ramos has this question of what would be the major challenge as well as opportunity for adopting RED Plus and M&E system in the NGP? That is related to the question.
Well, I also mentioned that we have provided inputs for the M&E of the NGP, and DNR actually welcomed these inputs. We are just waiting for the final guidelines, but we also presented to them this the experience on the ground, and they are actually well aware of the experiences, challenges, and all the methods that we have done for the project.
The question is, can the RED Plus M&E system be used for regular non-RED reforestation initiatives as well?
As we have provided inputs for the NGP, the system can also be implemented with other projects.
Bakit raw Leyte? Why was Leyte chosen as the pilot site for RED Plus?
For Leyte, maybe our principal advisor can further discuss the history of choosing Leyte.
Could you please?
Thank you, Emma, for inviting me. I'm Bernd Liss. I'm the principal advisor for some projects funded under the BMU International Climate Initiative, and the RED project is one of them. Actually, the selection of the project site has been done based on partner priorities. In Southern Leyte, there's a key biodiversity area that was identified in the partner priorities for biodiversity conservation, so we aligned with that, and this was a joint decision with DNR and with local partners. There were various criteria how to select project sites, and one of them was, of course, that it's of key importance, that there's some forest issues ongoing, that there's some deforestation problem that needs to be addressed, and also one very important aspect was the preparedness of the LGUs to do something in this direction.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Ramos. We shall move on to comments and questions on the next paper, on the next presentation. The first, I'm reading them in order as they were submitted to me. The first question is, you have a highly sophisticated data collection tool in geotag, but how about your actual M&E system? What approach did you use? Is it possible to do a test run? Is it possible to do a test run of the whole system from stage 1 to the final evaluation report generation? That's the first question. Let me see. Other related questions to that one. Please identify the field equipment required for geotagging. And if there was a question, how much does it cost for those field equipment as well as the cost of training? So, Mr. Dilesa, could you please reply to those first questions?
Thank you, sir. I'll begin with the comments coming from the participants. Geotagging is one of the tools that is being used by the project in the conduct of its M&E system. So we have our usual M&E and MIS. We have the operations and financial MIS, results-based monitoring system, impact evaluation, and other systems that are already in place. So relative to the earlier comment and suggestion of Dr. Masood, in terms of human side and human dimension of the geotagging, as I mentioned, geotagging is only one of the tools that we are using. it is one of our primary method just to reduce the cost of conducting M&E, to provide better transparency and accountability, and improving public disclosure. However, we are not forgetting the human dimension of conducting or gathering data. We have what we call the community-based monitoring and evaluation, wherein our partner LGUs, the communities themselves, specifically the barangays. We have what we call CBME, Community-Based Monitoring Evaluation Group, usually headed by the barangay chairman. They are providing data to the municipal LGUs. And then, in terms of collecting data through geotagging, even us, without really going to the area, there's still somebody or someone doing the actual geotagging, which is usually the municipal personnel, field personnel. Then, in terms of test run, actually, our training sessions for geotagging usually last for around 2 to 3 days. And at the end of the third day, all participants are required to email to us the actual, because the first day is devoted to theoretical details. Second day will be on actual field data collection, and at the afternoon will be the processing, and then the third day is sharing. So at the end of the third day, you are required to submit to us an email with your work. So if the question is, can we conduct a test run or from the beginning at the end? So in 2 to 3 days, you can actually see from data collection up to the actual processing of data. And then, Mr. Chair, if I'll be allowed on the comment made by Dr. Sumbilia, presented by Mr. Gomez of NEDA on the sustainability plan for this undertaking, I just would like to inform everyone that right now geotagging is now being adopted by the Department of Agriculture. It is being used nationwide, and all regional field units of the department is required to undergo such trainings. And similarly, we have presented this to the Department of Budget and Management through Yusek Vilampagos and Yusek Laura Pascua, and in the future, they will be requiring all farm-to-market roads initially of the DA to be geotagged as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Related to that, there's a question here on the level of acceptance of geotagging, on the use of geotagging by the Commission on Audit. I don't know why the question is being raised, pero there's no problem with the Commission on Audit.
Mr. Chair, wala po. And then, just to add, actually, we are also inviting the auditors of COA as one of the participants during our trainings. The question earlier, what the unit we are using is the Samsung tablets, Androids. This is one of the unit. This is 7.0. It's not an advertisement for Samsung, but we have tried several units, as I mentioned earlier, but this one fits to our requirements. So it should be an Android. We have seen other participants bringing their 10.1, bringing their Apple. The problem with Apple is that all their applications are come with a cost. Unlike with Google Earth and Samsung, their applications usually are for free. Like GPS data, so they are all for free. You can easily download them. So all our application systems can be downloaded for free. So if this can be sustainable, everything should be free. Except for the unit. In terms of cost, I think this is around 20,000. 20,000, right? 20,000 pesos. 20,000.
Maybe that was the context of the question with respect to COA. But it's not required that users use that particular model. The users are free to use any device that will run Google Earth.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The generic would be a smartphone or phone with digital camera and built-in GPS. So the problem with the GPS alone is that usually it has no camera built-in, or it has camera. So sometimes the camera and the GPS do not talk to each other. Unlike with the smartphone right now, you have a phone, you have a camera, you have a cell phone, you have a computer in one. So when purchasing this equipment, we are not putting, this is one strategy you can use also that. We do not put tablet or phones, we put geotagging device.
Another question here.
In the procurement plan, geotagging device.
Another question here is, the geotagging relies heavily on Google Earth system. What happens when a new, better system mapping comes along? Will the system be able to migrate to that new one?
That's a very good question, Mr. Chair. Actually, in collaboration with the World Bank, we are working with them because they have introduced GeoIQ, GeoMaps, then Google Earth. There are several platforms that are available already, and these platforms are for free also, and we can easily shift from one platform to another. If there's problems with Google Earth, it can be easily shown in other platforms.
There's a question here on how much did it cost the project to set up an efficiently functioning geotagging monitoring evaluation system?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. So, as I said, our investment for this technology involved only the cost for the geotagging device. We invested on that, and then the cost of trainings. The good thing here is that for our partner LGUs, because when they saw the system, actually the LGUs bought their own devices. It is not the project nor the DA who provided the devices to our partner LGUs.
Could you provide some ballpark figures on the cost of the equipment and the cost of the training? How much you mentioned earlier, it takes some 3 days for training.
For around 30 participants, it will cost around 300 to 500,000 pesos, and then the cost of the device, so it's less than 1 million actually, Mr. Chair.
How do you ensure that data uploaded are validated and authentic? How is the validation process taking place?
The good thing about geotagging is that every picture with geo data or spatial data is like a thumb mark wherein one location represents, or one point, one picture represents only one location. You cannot duplicate a latitude and longitude. So every data that comes to us, we can always validate it with the field, but every picture that comes with a spatial data, geodata, represents only one point. So based on our experience, we haven't met or experienced one fraudulent information sent through our system. Because not unlike before, Mr. Chair, wherein, for example, specifically in NGP or in infrastructure projects, they can submit pictures of similar project but of different location. Say, the project is in Leyte, but the picture was taken somewhere in Mindanao. But in geotagging, you cannot do that because once you alter the geodata, the latitude and longitude, we can easily detect them in our system. Even the dates, if you alter the dates, we can easily detect in our system. So it will be taught during the training sessions.
Do you have any plans to train to include NGOs in your training on the use of the system?
Mr. Chair, it will be dependent on the request. Right now, actually, we are booked until March of next year for the training service because of the numerous requests.
Probably because you're underpricing the service, right?
Samsung should provide us some, I don't know. Because sometimes some stores in Mindanao, especially also in northern Luzon, in Baguio, the director there reported to us that there will be some delays because some of the units were already sold out.
Do we have time to invite questions from the floor? There may be additional questions. Yes, please.
This question is directed to the project, the RED, integrating RED. Did you consider participatory monitoring from stakeholders?
Well, actually, for the MNE, we do it with the stakeholders because we developed the system together. So we wanted them to really take part in that system by doing the monitoring themselves. And actually, us providing inputs, but mostly from the stakeholders. For the MNE system, we actually, by developing, we just provided for example, for developing the forms for the monitoring, and then we also conducted trainings for them for their monitoring for the reforestation areas, and then they do it themselves, and then after that they requested DNR for the monitoring of DNR, including a representative from GIZ. Then after that we have the report, and then that's the basis for the financing agreement for the payment.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? If not, then perhaps I can briefly summarize and relate this also to last year's Section 3, which dealt with the presentation of solicited papers as well. The papers we saw last year were very micro compared to what we had this year, probably because of the topics themselves. In last year's Session 3, the topic was on evaluation approaches and practices. We saw one presentation on the household treatment of drinking water and the prevalence of diarrhea. The same authors, the Dokoy Capuno, also presented another paper on randomized controlled trials for assessing the impact of subsidies for insurance, for health insurance for the informal sector. And then we had a presentation from the Department of Science and Technology, the engineer Matilya, who did a program theory driven evaluation of the research laboratories in the OSD in Region 10. This year we see broader approaches, the common theme being the use of information technology and GPS in the monitoring of the respective projects that we're looking at. It is unfortunate that the first paper was not presented because it deals with the application of IT to the monitoring and evaluation of health systems, software side of social projects. What we have seen this morning is first one on natural resources and the environment, and the second one on infrastructure. But I think one thing we can say with the presentation this morning, as pointed out by one of the discussants and questions from the floor, is that what we capture with these technologies would be a before and after situation. We don't see without and with which the impact assessment approach, new normal now that they can say with respect to impact assessment stresses that it is the evaluation involves a without and with approach, the maybe eventually the or maybe as a matter of fact in the M&E systems that are being implemented, there are aspects that deal with the issue of the counterfactual, the so-called counterfactual, except that the presentations this morning we wanted to focus more on the technologies, the use of the new technologies in the gathering of information. You also see that this geotagging system helps in not just the monitoring of what's happening, but also in the appraisal and the preparation of projects. Probably the contribution is very strong, as pointed out in the presentation of Mr. De Mesa, that indeed substantial cost saving can be achieved, especially by way of validating what the proposals are coming from the proponents, in this case, I suppose the local governments in the different areas, but probably the regional offices and the land agencies as well. And in that sense, it's very welcome. When we focus on outcomes, the outcomes will not materialize unless the output is there. And these systems that we have seen presented this morning do allow us to see to it that the outputs are delivered. And from there, then the expectation of outcomes is much more easily appreciated. So, with this, we conclude this morning session, and let me remind the people that this portion of today's program, for this portion, we have those posters on display for us to see before we go to lunch and convene again later this afternoon. So thank you very much for participating with us.
Thank you very much, Professor Alonzo, for wrapping up our first session this morning. And we would also like to thank our presenters and guest panelists with another round of applause. Before we proceed to the poster presentations, we have 2 questions for the members of the M&E network. That means everybody. So for the first question, in your perspective, what should be the top priorities of the M&E network in the next 6 months? Again, in your perspective, what should be the top priority of the M&E network in the next 6 months? And the second question is, how can you contribute to that priority? Again, how can you contribute to that priority? So everybody is requested to please write your answers along with your name and agency on the papers provided on your tables, and these will be collected later by the secretary. So at this point, we will now proceed to our poster presentation and exhibit. So everybody is encouraged to take time to view the various poster submissions displayed in the hall. The poster presenters will be on hand to address your queries on their respective posters. So we have until about 12:30 p.m. for you to engage with our poster presenters. Thank you.
Dapat nag-submit ka rin.
ArchShits is about real-time monitoring of maternity child indicators using CHITS. And CHITS is a system.
So we would like to invite the members of the audience to stand up and look at these posters placed at the front of the room. Thank you.
Yes, UP Manila National Laboratory was established in 1998. It's based in UP Manila. Its main engagement is about Land survey, but these areas are vulnerable areas, and they're also identified as geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas. So that's the common basically the part of the in a way it's an assurance for us that we will have a
Can you tell me something about the information?
So Mr. Levy,
And in most cases, pag kinontract out yan, it would be stated hindi naman something for free. So how do you get your data for travel time, for example? Is it immediately after you finish yung segment na yun, tatapusin mo yung 50 kilometers? Tinatanong ko kasi tatanong lang 6-7 you can assess.
But so far, the link is on the national and regional. Wala pa yung regional sa NGP.
Sa mga training workshops namin, yung namin mga RGUs, dapat kasama talaga.
And welcome back to our second monitoring and evaluation forum. Before we start, we would like to thank our poster presenters for their poster submissions earlier and for accommodating the questions from our audience. So our last session tackles evaluation as undertaken by various stakeholders in their own specific contexts. We have invited representatives from the United States Agency for International Development, or USAID, the Center for Development and Research in Evaluation, or CEDRE International, the Ibon Foundation, and the Mapua Institute of Technology to share their insights from their respective fields. Our first speaker for today is Ms. Gloria Steele, who is currently the Mission Director of the United States Agency for International Development. Before her appointment in the Philippines, Ms. Steele served as the Senior Deputy Assistant Administrator for the Bureau of Global Health, USAID. Ms. Steele also served in various USAID key posts, such as the Senior Deputy Assistant Administrator for the Bureau for Europe and Eurasia from 2001 to 2004, and as an agricultural economist for the Bureau for Africa, and 7 years in the Bureau for Science and Technology, overseeing applied research on key rural development issues. To give us her presentation, Implementing a Culture of Evaluation, let us welcome Ms. Gloria Steele.
Thank you very much, Elias. Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. We have worked very closely with, I want to thank NEDA and UNICEF for inviting us. We worked very closely with NEDA, especially as while we were putting together our new 5-year strategy, which is, of course, the basis for the programs that we will evaluate in the next 5 years, and in looking at our performance reporting of our grant programs and in collaborating on high-quality evaluations. So our participation in this forum today is really an important part of this very close collaboration with NEDA, and we're very excited to be here this afternoon. Today, what I would like to do is to start by reviewing the history of evaluation in this area, and then talk about the various steps that we have taken to cultivate and nurture the culture of evaluation in both Washington and in the Philippines. And these include ensuring buy-in from the top, instituting policy, providing resources and measurement. And then, of course, I'll be talking about how we will be measuring success. Next slide, please. AID has started evaluations really that goes way back to 1950. It's very interesting. My talking points here say that we unearthed a document that talked about AID having log frames in the in 1970s. So actually, I was there, so I didn't have to unearth the document. Actually, we started the project evaluations in 1950, and by the 1970s, we started the practice of doing log frames or logical frameworks. I think that AID was the first in the development community to develop log frames, and it is an important basis for evaluation.